All right, everybody. I hope you had a good spring break. Welcome to week number 11. That is right, week number 11 of your 9489 class, which is your cultural heritage class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. J.S.K. Austin. And what we are going to be doing today is a quick state of the course update because there really isn't that much to say. And then once we get past the state of the course update, then we are going to talk a little bit about an article that just, again, kind of a recent article that kind of reinforces what I say about how cultural heritage and preserving and making cultural heritage presentable can help with instilling pride and honor within a population, and it can also help prevent erasure, because what's happening with this is that with this article that I'm about to show you, a very significant, even though they're a relatively small population within a country, there's still a significant population in the country that has contributed to the history of this nation. And yet, if a museum celebrating this population is closed, that will be an erasure of a lot of public knowledge. So let's go ahead and make me small here. Also, I do want to just say really quickly, if you are weirded out by this tape that's on my glasses, my lens is split, and I think it will be May before I can actually get a new pair of glasses. So that's kind of going to be weird. Hopefully you're not too distracted by this. I had one student previously in one of my teaching evaluations say that I wore a baseball hat in one of my videos, and that person was just ultimately too distracted to even pay attention to what I was saying because I wore a hat. So people say strange things in evaluations. I'm just going to say that now because I know at least one of you is planning to become a college professor, and just be aware that people can be a little strange. So yes, I'm sure this is going to distract some people as well, and I apologize in advance, but I need to be able to see. All right, so let's get into this right here. First of all, I did during spring break this webinar, and I only heard about this webinar like right before it happened. So this webinar right here took place during spring break, and there is a recording of it. So I'm going to see if I can make that recording accessible. If I can, then I'm going to put it in the announcements for this check-in video right here. So that's the first thing. The main thing, however, that you need to know is that you do have an assignment that is due this week, this coming Sunday, and that's your top 4 most important cultural heritages within a community paper. Okay. So if we click on that, again, this is going to be due on Sunday, and you do have some examples here. Again, I've said this before, I don't like giving sample papers, but you kind of have to in this class. I kind of had to because I wasn't sure whether or not my prompts made sense. And so these sample papers were people in the past who did meet what I was trying to say according to the prompt. But I also give a little bit of an example here. So I'm from Warren County, North Carolina, and I've identified what I feel are the 4 most important cultural heritages and how they come together to make our county unique. Those 4 heritages being the annual Halawasa Pony Powwow, the Cherry Hill Plantation, which is where my ancestors were enslaved, the annual Cantaloupe Festival in Ridgeway, and then the Norlina Museum, which I think has actually closed recently, but I'm not sure. I'll have to check into that. All right, so yes, just know that your paper is coming up, and then also you do have your discussion board prompt for the week. And outside of that, you really don't have a lot that you need to know for State of the Course update. So that is it for the State of the Course update. And now let's talk about this article really quick. Oh, I don't want you to be seeing too much of that. All right, let's look at this. Okay, so this is the article here. There are children who do not want to be black. That's a quote from within this article, and this article is very short. And this article is about one woman's bid to save Mexico's first Afro-Mexican museum. So here's the thing. I've only met one, and I've met people from all around the country because I've always been in situations, well, since high school, I've been in situations where I'm just meeting people from all over the place. When I was in high school, I actually went to the only high school in a large district that taught that had English as a second language. So all the kids who lived in that school district if they were born in a country that English wasn't the primary language spoken there, and if they didn't speak English as their primary language, they came to my high school. So I always had classmates throughout my 4 years of high school who were from, I had classmates from every continent except Antarctica. No, I didn't. I'm sorry, I did not have any Australian classmates, but I had European, African, other places in North America, South America, and Asian classmates all throughout high school, and was always dealing with the international the international scene. And then also my family is blended. My father, after he left my mother, he married a Dominican woman, so I have Hispanics in my immediate family. My stepmother and my younger brother are Dominican, and when I say that my younger brother is Dominican, he actually spent the first 13 years of his life in the Dominican Republic and actually does not identify as an American. So yes, he is culturally Dominican. When he finally moved here to the United States at 13, he did not speak any English. Okay. So yeah, he is a Dominican. But with that said, again, I've only met one Afro-Mexican in my entire life, just one. And even I met him at an international festival in South Carolina. And other Mexican people even were saying, like, he was saying, "Oh, I'm Mexican." He would speak to Mexican people in Spanish, and they would speak back, and then they would ask him where he was from, thinking that he would say the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico or Cuba, and he would say Mexico, and they'd be, I heard 3 people say, when he said that. It was like people who were from Mexico did not know. It seemed like they didn't even know that there were Afro-Mexicans, and Afro-Mexicans only make up 2% of the population of Mexico currently. However, that 2% is still 2.5 million people. So that is still that's not a lot of people in comparison with the overall population of Mexico, but still 2.5 million people that's not something to sneeze at. You know what I'm saying? That's frankly quite a few people. And so what you have going on here is that about 25 years ago, the first Afro-Mexican museum was established, and I'm not sure that there are many others or any others. I kind of skimmed through this article and didn't really, I may have overlooked whether or not there are other Afro-Mexican museums in Mexico. But this is certainly the oldest one. It's the premier one, and yet it's being held together pretty much by one woman who is now 62 and who fears that she may have to retire. And when she retires, she doesn't know the fate of what this museum is going to be. And so when I talk about cultural heritage and the documentation and the preservation and yada, 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 the things that you all have heard me ramble about throughout this entire semester, one of my goals, in addition to, I do think that cultural heritage, I've spoken about this, I do think that cultural heritage is our path to world peace. But I also think that cultural heritage is a way to prevent people and their knowledge from being erased. And what you see if you read this article, and it's a very short article, by the way, I'm going to link it, is very short. So you see there, and then it's over. So we're not talking about, sorry, not over there, but over there. So we're not talking about a long article here, but in this very short article, what you will see is basically a tone of fear, basically a tone of concern from this woman who's saying that, there are people in Mexico who don't even want to identify as Black. They don't want to be seen as Black or as Afro-Mexican. There's a stigma attached to it. And one of the things that when I scroll down, I want you all to see this quote here, because when I talk about erasure, this is what I'm speaking about. Mexico is a country, and this is Ms. Castro, who is hold on for a second. Sorry, that was false recall, and I had to correct myself. Ms. Castro is not the lady that we saw pictured here, who is working in the museum and keeping it going. Ms. Castro is actually here, a politician and also a campaigner who is of Afro-Mexican descent. And she's talking about basically the identity erasure here. So for Afro-Mexicans who today make up 2% of the population, their identity is almost completely omitted from Mexico's national history, records, textbooks, and travel guides. And so she's saying, it's as if we didn't exist as peoples. This lack of recognition is what motivates us to try to not be erased from history. We want children to read about us in school. Absolutely. And so you see a similar sentiment here with some of the erasure that you see in the United States right now, and the attempts at erasure that you see within the United States right now. That omission, and I'm going to say it, the attempts at omission kind of come from mostly the right wing. I'm a political moderate, so I'm a political center leftist, basically. So it's not that I have a problem with the right wing a lot of the time. I do actually agree with the right wing on a lot of things, but when they talk about, the colorblindness and all this stuff that they want to talk about, and how we need to just have this colorblind society, that colorblind society is not going to work. That is a fantasy. That is a fantasy. We will never have a colorblind society. And when what they want to do is erase the recognition of color where it can be beneficial to quote unquote people of color. But I don't think that they are really that interested in erasing some of the many white perks that exist in our society. And one of the reasons why I'm going to say that is because one thing that I've never heard, and this is something that I want you all to kind of take with you. One thing that I've never heard any of these people arguing for a colorblind society, one thing that they never question or never talk about is crime data that is collected by race. In a truly colorblind society, it doesn't matter what race offenders are, but the same people talking about we need to do away with recognizing color and we need to do away with affirmative action and critical race theory and blah, 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 blah. These are not people who question, oh yeah, we do need to have crime data by race. They never question that. And that stuff does not matter in a colorblind society, in a truly colorblind society. So yeah, people are on their hogwash, but I wanted to keep scrolling down and show again this quote from Ms. Castro as well. Mexico is a country that prides itself on the diversity of its peoples. We are talking about 68 culturally differentiated peoples, each with its richness, language, and tradition, but no one spoke about Black people. And so that's the thing. You will have basically second class populations in a lot of these countries. And that's the case in Mexico with Black people. And that's the case with indigenous people in Canada. And for all of this stuff that you hear about the United States having poor race relations, as far as I'm concerned, you see that everywhere. Like I've had people that I've met from Britain and South Africa and Canada who have told me, oh man, people in America, they're really hung up on race. Race. And then you hear stuff all the time about the racism that people experience in Europe and the racism that people experience in South Africa and the racism that the indigenous in particular experience in Canada. They are not doing better than us. I'm sorry. But I say all that to say that you do have these people who are treated as second-class citizens, and one of the ways to kind of remedy that treatment and to allow these people and their legacies to stand and be appreciated is through cultural heritage, through commemoration, through preservation, through documentation, and through oral histories and making sure that their stories are told. Okay, and so this article here is a prime example of what I'm getting at with that rhetoric that I'm spitting at y'all. But anyway, I said that this one is going to be brief, and I am going to keep it brief. We are therefore going to keep it under 15 minutes, and I hope you sped it up. I am Dr. Jace, and at week 11, you are more than halfway done with this race because this is a 15-week course, so congratulations. I hope you've enjoyed so far, and I hope you continue to enjoy if you do, or I hope that if you have not enjoyed so far, that you will enjoy the rest of the way. And I will see you in the discussion boards. Look forward to reading your papers. Take care. Have a nice night.